It's good afternoon at this point. Hi, Ty. Thank you for hanging out with me today and being willing to share your story with our audience. I will give you a moment to tell us who you are and what brought us together for Surviving Out of Spite.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the invite. So I want to.
Mm.
I I go out and I've lived a life of juvenile diabetic since I was
Hmm.
8, wearing the insulin pump, and then as life went on, multiple transplants
Hmm.
throughout the years. And so I just, I'm here and I got to be able to get to a point in my life where I can now I kind of woke up and goes, how can I help others, right? How can
Hmm.
I go help people based off of my past experience? And so I'm really excited to be able to do that. It's been amazing to see the responses.
Hmm.
But yeah, again, this through medical experience, through my business experience, through life, right? Life's hard. And so
Yeah.
I'm always trying to encourage people to how I got through it, and maybe they can relate in some way to help them.
Yeah, and I know, that was what connected us was the idea of surviving out of spite and having that mentality of, you know, not toxic positivity, "I can do this, let me show you the way," but really to focus in on that piece of survival and what got you through those hard times and what pieces of your story you've been able to share because 'cause you've been through so much. I feel like you've lived 100 lives from
Yeah,
what you shared with me. You
yeah,
have been through more than most people ever should have to go through, and you're here smiling like, "Hey, let me tell you my story. Let me bring you on this journey with me." So, it is inspiring to see that, and, we're grateful that you've come onto our platform and your own platform to say, like, "I've been through some shit, and I wanna talk about it, but I want to encourage you to get through yours too."
yeah, absolutely. And again, I have been through a lot, but at the same time, I guess the way it started, growing up, I was raised where you kind of just my parents were kind of one of those dust off and keep going kind of thing, right? Don't put a
Yeah.
band-aid on it and let's go. And I really look back and I'm very thankful. At the time I didn't think it was so nice, but looking back, I'm very thankful that they raised me that way because I really think
Mhm.
that's what helped me through all of my challenges. So that's kind of what has really helped me set what I call the no options mindset.
Yeah.
Um, and as I tell my story, kind of there was points throughout those stories that really where the no option mindset came in place. But again, kind of briefly, juvenile diabetic when I was 8, very brittle diabetes, right? I mean, just one of those that they could never get it controlled.
Yeah.
Grew up in Texas, Southeast Texas. I was grew up down that way, and the closest really medical center that had really the doctors that we needed was Houston.
Okay.
So I was at 8 years old. I started going to the doctors there to find out how we can help get there and get a better controlled diabetes, which I
Mhm.
really battled again for years. So, I mean, it was just it was tough, and taking multiple shots a day, the slow acting, the fast acting, all these different types of trying to figure
Insulin.
out how much and this and that and diets and in fact I was talking just yesterday about a diabetic in the '70s and as a diabetic today, the technology has just completely changed, right? So,
Yeah.
but not only having brittle diabetes, but just the technology back then wasn't near what it is today. So,
Mhm.
a lot of challenges. But I was at 10, the doctors decided they said, "Hey, there's a chemotherapy syringe pump that we could put insulin in," and we put this in this chemotherapy pump, and they started slowly giving me insulin. So I was getting insulin every few minutes throughout the day versus taking shots, right? So
Mhm.
they were trying to control my diabetes. I stayed in the hospital for months trying to regulate this thing, which
Yeah.
was really neat to see the progress of these things. And then it was kind of fun. I always said that, I never been in a hospital where the doctors would take me outside to go into the park and run, but they were wanting to see, like, they were wanting to see exercise, they wanted to see
Yeah.
what insulin would do, so, anyway, being in a research floor was really interesting to see, which would then become really where they started defining the pump. The insulin pump started getting better and
Yeah.
better and better. So over the years, I got the different insulin pumps and I still battled. I mean, don't I always tell people it wasn't easy, but it was but we got through it, right? We figured our ways through
Mhm.
it, different pumps, and I was a normal just a boy, right? I mean, falling in the water and falling out of a tree, just the typical boy thing, right? Um, but as life went on, I went to college, got through that, and obviously your lifestyle's changed. So you have to kind of
Yep.
adjust with all that. And then at the age of 30, I mean, just feeling horrible. I went in and
Mhm.
come to find out my kidneys were failing.
Mhm.
And it was just a really hard time. And I didn't know. And so they come back and they say, "Hey, Ty, your kidneys are like very little function." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me what that means. What are we doing?" They're
Yeah.
like, "What's it? Well, you need a kidney transplant." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, hold on. What does that mean?" So, but what they said, you have such brittle diabetes and such, that if we really need to find um, because if you did a kidney, they felt like it would be just it would really burn through kidneys because the diabetes would just really kind of
Sure.
tear, reject pretty quickly. So
Mhm.
they said, but here's the deal: there is a doctor in Baltimore, Maryland, that is doing a dual transplant, a kidney pancreas transplant.
Mhm.
So, he said, "I think you might be a candidate." He said, would you be willing to attempt that?" And I said, "Absolutely." I mean, yes. I mean, it's kind of that's where part of another spot where that no options came in place. I said, "I don't want to feel like this." I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely don't want to live on dialysis or whatever that looks like moving forward. If there's an option, yes, let's do that. So we went up there. Sure enough, I was a candidate, which was great. After a lot of blood testing and testing, right? Come to find out, I was a candidate. So here sets the deal, right? So I'm a candidate for the transplant. So now I've got to find a kidney.
Mhm.
And my mother, who was 60 at the time, said, "Ty, if uh, if I am a possible candidate, I want to be the one to donate because we, I'm your mother for first, and second of all, we've been given two kidneys,
Mhm.
so I feel like that's my role to do." Um, so we tested her and everything. She came back to be a perfect match, which was great. So we were excited. So now, if you think about it, I have a kidney lined up, but we had to wait
Mhm.
for a pancreas because now that's a deceased donor, right? So I have
Mhm.
to wait and get on a list to wait for that. So we get on a list. I'm still working every day, but man, I'm telling you, it is hard.
I
Um,
can only imagine.
you know, well, just, a lot of, and I always encourage people at this point to talk. I say, you know, there's a lot of things that are hard, right? But I mean, it's worth the fight, right? To keep fighting because what we saw, I mean, I knew there was a brighter light on the other side, right? So
Mhm.
I was really trying to get through it. And I had been told though, if I don't go on dialysis, you have a better chance of not rejecting. So I did not really want to throw in the towel and go, to get put on dialysis. So I was
Yeah.
really trying to push through. So the crazy story was the week before I finally got to a point where I said, I've got to go on dialysis. It was about 8 weeks. Oh, no, I'm sorry, about 8 months actually of
Wow.
waiting. Um, and I finally said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna have to do dialysis. I just can't do this anymore." I mean, I would go to work and at lunchtime take a nap, and then as soon as I would get home, I would go to bed so that I could try to make it through the next day. It was just really a hard
Yeah.
time. Um, so with that said, I went to the doctor. That was like a Wednesday. Well, that Sunday night, my phone rings at midnight and it's Baltimore saying, "Hey, we think we have a pancreas that matches you. We got it. We're working on it. The
Mhm.
procurement team is looking at it, trying to prepare it. Um, but they said, hang tight. I'm gonna be giving you a call quickly to let you know whether now I'm in Texas and the organs and the surgery is going to be done in Baltimore. So I immediately called my mother, who lives
Mhm.
about 5 hours from me, and she doesn't answer the phone. And I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
no.
God." I'm like, "That is my kidney. She's gotta answer the phone." So I finally get a hold of her. And we get all lined up. We get on planes, obviously, and we get over there. And I always say it's kind of like the movies, right? Where you hurry, 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 get there and running and stressing out. And obviously my nerves were really shot because
Yeah.
um, the success rate of this surgery was not 100% by no means. I
Mhm.
mean, in fact, there was probably about a 50-50 shot of people that have survived it at that point. Um,
Wow.
so we get there, hurry up and wait, get obviously get on the IVs, get everything ready.
Mhm.
Uh, but in the surgical room, I'm in the middle, my mother's in the other part of it, and then they have the donated organ in the other. So they're all different teams working. So it was an incredible team effort to make this
Yeah.
happen. But anyway, 16-hour surgery. Um,
Gosh.
I came out of the surgery, my mother is sitting next to me in a wheelchair. She had already come out and was right there, and, um, I mean, when I woke up, I felt different. I mean, I felt
Hmm.
like, "Oh my gosh." You know, uh, it was a really challenging time, on a recovery because think about your body has just got 2 organs in it now that it's naturally trying to fight.
Mhm.
Um, and then, uh, and then I was put on about 60 pills a day,
Oh gosh.
to try that well, to suppress your immune system, but then
Yep.
half of them were just the side effects from the 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 other medication. So I was taking a
Yeah.
lot of medication. So your body really is trying to, adapt, right? So the first year was really hard. I was it was a hard first year of recovery.
I
Um,
bet.
but after that first year is like the light, the light just came on. And somebody asked me, he said, "Ty, what?" It was one of the local newspapers I was interviewing with. They said, what would you describe life before the surgery and after the surgery?" And the best way I said it was, you know, life I see was in black and white. Now I see it in full color. I mean, that was just what really came to my mind, and it
Yeah.
truly was. I mean, I was able to do. I didn't realize how bad I had felt all those years. So it was a really amazing thing. Um, with that said, I mean, I started, because keep in mind, I got a pancreas, right? So I got rid of diabetes. So I didn't have diabetes any longer because I had been I had received a pancreas. So for 12 years, that pancreas lasted, and I didn't have to take insulin. I didn't have to. I mean, it was just an amazing time.
Mhm.
And then my kidney lasted for 20 years. Um, so so after the pancreas stopped working, I had to get put back on the insulin pump.
Mm.
And then 20 so that was this past, 2019, my kidney started failing again. So the kidney that I had received from my mom started kind of wearing out, which happens.
Mhm.
Um, so my sister was lined up. I was gonna get her kidney. We had to go through this again, right? And, got put on dialysis, which I always say this, if you know somebody going through dialysis, I mean, say a prayer for those people. That's a hopeless place, right? I feel that it's
Yeah.
just a hard place. Um, and it's really, really challenging times there because it's just hard. But got put on dialysis. I was going through that, and then my sister found out her kidney wasn't going to work through some
Ugh.
testing. So we kind of panicked a little bit. But then my wife said, "Ty, we've heard about this swap where I can go in and donate my kidney, and then you receive a kidney that matches." And so she said, I want to do that." I said, "That's awesome. I would really appreciate that." So she went in and to go do blood work, and that afternoon she calls me. She's crying. I'm like, "What the heck?" She said, "God changed my blood type." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Um, and so I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Ty, I match you perfectly." And I'm like, "What?" So all that to say, 8 weeks later, I received my wife's kidney. Uh, and here we are. I mean, I feel wonderful, and I can say today I feel better than I have as long as I can remember. And,
That's so
so
great.
I'm very thankful, and I always laugh about that. I always say, at Mother's Day, what in the world? I don't have enough, money in the world. I don't have enough money in the world to be able to for my mom and my wife on Mother's Day because they both would give me life. So, but, it's a kind of a wild story, right? I mean, it's been wild, but I look at it and go, "Man, we're all dealing with something, right? I mean, things are
Yeah,
hard, but I encourage people to whatever they're dealing with to push through because on the other side of that, because I received that kidney and that pancreas and back in 1999, I I was able to get married. I was able to adopt my daughter. I was able
mhm,
to start a business. Um, and so I always say, whatever's on the other side of these challenges, there's a lot of good things on the other side. So I encourage people to keep pushing because there were days I didn't think I was even
gonna make
could
it.
make it.
Yep,
And I know
yep.
in your audience there's people I mean that are dealing with a lot.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I think back to the sickest I ever was and getting to a point where I was so malnourished. I was skin and bones. My muscles were atrophying. I couldn't keep anything down. You know, at that point I was on a liquid diet and even what I was able to keep down liquid was starting not to tolerate. And I have a very distinct moment of leaving, getting an infusion, and I couldn't drive. So my dad had to come get me, and the nurses walked me from the infusion center to the front of the hospital where my dad was coming to pick me up because they were like, "We're afraid to let you go." And I'm like, "Well, my dad is here." And they're like, "No, no, no, like we have to walk you down. We can't just send you down by yourself." And I was so sick. And I called one of my doctors at the time and I was like, "I'm afraid I'm going to die." Like I really am afraid to go to sleep. And there were so many nights that I laid there so tired because I was so malnourished and I was just so exhausted and my body was tired of fighting, but like my spirit wanted to keep fighting, but my body was so exhausted and I was afraid to go to sleep because I didn't think I was going to wake up in the morning. And
Yeah.
that
Wow.
further exhausts you because you're staying awake and you're not getting any recovery overnight to let your body actually like rest in a way it's supposed to. And in that moment, like I was eternally grateful to the doctor I had at the time who knew me well enough and had seen me through a lot already and was like, "She's not kidding." Like we're at a point like she's not kidding. We need to do something for her now. And he worked his magic on his end with another office that worked their magic and to get me into the hospital. And, you know, a couple weeks later, I left an appointment with a nutrition doctor. She was in bariatrics and nutrition, worked with like tube feeds and TPN and everything. We weren't even home yet from my appointment, and my phone is ringing, and they're like, "You need to come back to the hospital because we're putting you inpatient in tonight." And I'm like, I didn't realize I was that sick. Like that you're that bad, but she like took one look
Right.
at me and was like,
Right.
okay, and she was really good at what she did and got me in and, got me on TPN and I was on that for a few years and I got my strength back and um it's in those moments I've had a couple other like moments
Yeah.
where I'm like, where is the other side of this, And I think back to some of the coherent moments I had when I was really sick, thinking like, this isn't my time. Like, I'm not ready for this.
Right.
I want to be here. I need to be here. I'm not ready. Do not give up. And I think that in those moments was a lot of luck, but also, a lot of medical intervention. But if I hadn't have told myself internally, if I hadn't made that decision, like, I'm not going to stop fighting, like, even if I don't make it out of this, I'm going to fight until my dying breath, that is really what I think kept me going to get me to a point where I could get medical intervention and all the things that worked in my favor at that point to get me in where I needed to be to get the help because
Wow.
you're right, that other side, like we've all been through something hard. Whatever that hard is for somebody, whatever that really tough moment is, you don't have to have a chronic illness to really go through something and we've all been through it and as much as I would never want to go through any of that stuff again, like I never want to go through it, I wouldn't say, "Hey, yeah, let's do that again." It wasn't fun, but it got me into a position now where I was able, like you mentioned, you get married, you're able to adopt a child, have a business. Like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right here, right now, if I hadn't have been through that. So
Right.
coming through that other side and being able to say, I did that, I got through that, I think has really motivated and kept me pushing through when the inevitable shoe drops and you have to go through some shit all over again.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think it's a lot of times and as you mentioned, it's sometimes what we go through is really just preparing us to what we're going to be doing, right? And
Yeah,
that's by the way I look at it, right? So, but you mentioned a couple of things, the power of our positive thinking.
yeah,
I mean, our mind is so powerful, and I think we forget about that sometimes. And
we do.
when I was going through that, I mean, I didn't really look at it at the time, but when I started kind of talking about my story, I went back and I thought, what got me through those periods, right?
Mhm,
And I mean, there's a a little quick thing here. There's a 3-step process that these are the three things I look at, and I look at on a daily basis because I feel like this helps me through whatever adversity we're going through, right?
mhm,
But the first one I said, what are the three things that I when I look at that or when I went through this that I did? And the first one is a question: do you want to grow or die? And
yeah,
when I mean die, I mean some cases, I mean not physically death, but in some cases it's the death of a dream, a purpose, a
yeah,
hope.
yep,
You know, are we going to get better, or are we going to just let whatever happened, happened kind of thing. And then the
mhm,
other is hope or despair.
hmm,
I mean, are we gonna think positive? I mean, are we gonna be positive thinkers? And then the third is humor or drama. It's how we talk. And so I
yeah,
always say, grow or die is what we do. Hope or despair is how we think. And then humor or drama is how we talk. And the
mhm,
three of those, if I follow those three, it keeps my mind thinking positive, right? Because it's what
yeah,
I'm doing, it's how I'm talking, it's how I'm thinking.
mhm.
And it's like I said, it's amazing how powerful our mind is.
Yeah, and you're right. We do forget about that because when it's like just someone tells you like, "Oh, it's okay. You just need to have a positive attitude." When you're going through something, when someone else tells you that, it is the most unhelpful and invalidating thing ever. When someone's like,
Absolutely.
"Have you just thought, good thoughts and into the universe?" And I'm like, what? Like, don't invalidate my experience. Good thoughts are not going to fix it. But when I'm by myself and I'm in it with myself and in my own thoughts, I'm like, okay, very much like what you're saying is the thought that I'm having and these feelings that I'm having, are they helpful or harmful? Right. And what I've noticed for myself is to allow myself to acknowledge those harmful feelings, help me turn them into helpful feelings, right? By
Right,
saying, this is a crappy situation. Like, there is no point in saying, and that this isn't a hard
right,
situation. By invalidating that to yourself, that's not helping anybody because
right,
that's just taking that experience away from you when you need that experience to grow. And being on the other side of my experiences now, that's easy for me to say, but I know that when I was in it, if someone told me that, I'd want to flip them off. But I
right.
know but I know now how
Yeah,
helpful it was for me to acknowledge and let myself feel that despair, that
yeah,
anger, that guilt, that sadness, that grief, whatever it is. And that was the only thing that allowed me to get through it because I let myself acknowledge that this is tough. And that sounds so much like what you're talking about. Like, you're not putting a positive spin on something and saying, this is fun. I love dialysis. You're like, no, dialysis is a black hole of darkness right now, but I'm going to get through it.
that's
Those
right.
aren't the same, those aren't the same thing.
Right,
And
right,
we forget that a lot, that our minds have so much power that we forget is just inside of us because it sounds silly when you say that out loud. When you're like, you can spin this however you want for yourself, you're like, no, I need medical intervention. I'm like, no, you need a positive mindset. And
yeah,
it feels invalidating until you're alone with that and you realize, oh, that would be really helpful.
yeah.
I could do that because you're making that decision in that moment to fight for yourself and telling yourself you are worth fighting for.
I think it takes, you and I can talk about some pretty heavy times we went through, but
Yeah.
if we practice this on a day, I mean, every day we all wake up with some form of adversity. Some of us have
Yeah.
worse than others, and some are just extremely bad, and some are just minor. It may be that my car wouldn't start this morning,
Yeah.
or whatever that adversity looks like for you.
Mhm.
I think if we get used to using these steps, no matter what size of adversity we face, we automatically kind of go into that
Yeah.
mode.
Mhm.
And so, I do. It's been amazing to me as I. You're right. I mean, looking back at it, I was not going through the positive thinking like I should have. But when I do really look back at the time, there were things like this that's what got me through it, whether I thought it
Mhm.
at the time or not.
Yeah.
The but I do say the more I'm doing it now, the more encouraging that I am doing it. I notice when I run into adversity now, I fall back to this. It's starting to become more of a natural thing to me, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, and I hope that through others or whatever they're dealing with, that something like this is just a simple note, on your mirror, where somewhere on your computer, whatever that looks like. I know these sound silly, but
Mhm.
sometimes we just need that repetition of thinking
Yeah.
that will keep our
Absolutely.
our mind thinking positive.
There were during my half marathon training a few months ago, there were a couple really tough runs where I'm like, this is miserable. I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this. I want to quit. Right? Because I'm out of breath. I'm tired. I'm sweaty. I'm hungry. Maybe my sugar's all over the place because we know that happens. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And in the middle of that, and I'm like, Sam, no one's making you do this. This
Yeah,
is your choice. You are choosing this hard. And the moment I flipped that on myself, I was like, okay, this is my hard. I'm choosing this. And I realized like acknowledging that this is hard, but making that hard be my choice.
yeah,
That was something that I was choosing for now because this is the hard thing. And that keeps me strong for the next hard thing that's going to come up because I worked
right.
my way through it. And every time after that, when it got hard, I was like, Sam, don't go there. You're making yourself do this. Nobody told you to be out here except you. So if you're mad at somebody, be mad at yourself, suck it up and go. And then all
Well,
of a sudden I'm like, well, suck it up and go is what I'm going to do. And off I went.
no, that's so true. I mean, sometimes I say we just gotta look in the mirror, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're the ones that can make changes. We're the one, like in
Yeah.
your case there. I mean, you said, "Hey, this is something I chose. I'm
Hmm.
gonna get through it." But sometimes, I mean, us waiting on others or other things, or when this happens, I'm gonna do. No, I mean, we got to look ourselves in the mirror sometimes and go, "I'm gonna be the
Hmm.
one to make that." And that's
Yep.
like you with that half marathon. I mean, congratulations on that, by the way. That's my wife went to a half marathon, and I wasn't the one running, but I got to hear a lot about it, and I
Hmm.
know it's not easy. So,
No,
congratulations on that.
not
But,
enjoyable.
that's what she said. You know what? I think her words after that race was, "One and done." She didn't want
Yeah.
no
And
more of that.
yeah. And then next thing you know, she signed up for 4 marathons. You
Yeah.
can say you're done all you want, but we're never done.
That's right. A little addictive, I think. I think that stuff gets a little addictive. But, uh, but anyway, no, and those are similar stories, and again, I really, really, hope that I don't always say I can help everybody, but I mean, if I can help one, if we can help anybody, just this world's hard, as you
Yeah.
know, Sam, when we talk about,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough world out there, whether we're dealing with anything or not. Now,
Yeah.
most everybody has something, but
Hmm.
I mean, we've gotta be able to lock arms and try to help each other through this stuff, and that's really
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at, was just, you know, words that you say or words that I say may help somebody,
Hmm.
may help many, and it may help one, but whatever it is, I just hope it helps somebody.
Yeah. And it's vulnerable sharing your story and sharing what you've gone through because there's a couple different things, at least for me, that I felt where it's like, why am I doing this? Does anybody even care what I have to say? Right? Like, who am I to think that someone wants to take their time and listen to what I have to say? And then it's like, wait. That's really scary. I don't wanna admit that I felt that way or that I almost quit or that I was scared. I don't wanna feel that. But what I always end up coming back to is how I felt in those moments, and I was alone in a lot of that with my own thoughts and feeling isolated and scared and alone. If I knew that somebody else had been through that, whether or not they came out of it stronger didn't matter, but what it would feel to not be alone in those really tough, dark moments, that's the thing that keeps me allowing myself to be vulnerable and to share the hard thing and to share the scary thing and also tell you what got me through it, not just that I did get through it. Because you were saying everybody has something, and some people really go through some hard stuff, and some people, for them, what for you and me, we might say, that's a walk in the park. For them, that could be the worst day of their lives
Right.
because we don't know what else they're going through. So if something that I say or you say or any of us say that impacts somebody in a positive way, that gives them one more day, that gives them a little bit more, fuel on their fire to fight a little harder, do a little bit more, advocate for themselves a little bit harder. That's what we do this for. This isn't for the accolades. It's not for the money. It's not for anything other than we've been through some stuff. We know other people are going through some stuff. We want to collectively, like you said, lock arms, support each other, hype each other up, be there
Yeah.
for each other, and survive. Whether it's with a little dark humor, a little bit of love, a little bit of tough love, whatever it is, that's what we do this for because we know what it's like to be alone in this. And I think when you've experienced something like that, there's this desire that you didn't necessarily expect to come out of that, to never want someone else to be alone in
Yeah.
that.
It's such an interesting point. As I mentioned, kind of being raised by, just, put a Band-Aid, you're fine, keep pushing. That that was, I never really talked about what I went through. I mean, we had 40 plus employees that half of them didn't even know that I was going through anything because
Yeah.
we never really talked about it. But the interesting point was that the thing that really turned me to finally start sharing my story was when I went down to a family gathering with my wife's family. A lot of them I didn't know, but Crystal, my wife said, "Hey, do you mind telling your story?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't mind." I mean, I feel like why does anybody want to hear my problems, kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
I think a lot of us live that way. Like nobody wants to hear all my problems, and
Hmm.
nobody. But here's what happened though: is when I told that story, when I told my on the way home that evening, 3 or 4 of them texted me and said, "Hey, thanks for sharing. We're going to sign up to be organ donors." And I'm like,
Wow.
how selfish am I, right? If I can
Yeah.
simply tell my story and possibly
Yeah.
save somebody's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I mean, I encourage people, people that I know there's a lot of people out there like me that don't, like you said, that maybe we don't want to tell about our story or we don't, we feel like this is, if we can help people simply by just telling our stories,
Hmm.
sometimes talking about it is something people can help, and that's what I
Yeah.
want. I hope people will understand that talking about what you're going through is not a bad thing. People can somebody may learn from it, or somebody may hear what you're going through that can help you. So,
Yeah.
if just vocalizing some of what you're going through sometimes is really helpful.
Yeah, it's therapeutic,
Mhm.
and it really it it's connected me with so many people over the years. I've been in some form of patient advocacy for probably about 8 years now, and when I first got sick and I saw like the chaos of what it's like to rely on the healthcare system, I was like, this has to change. I want to talk about this. We're going to advocate. I'm going to do all of these things. I had energy in the beginning. And I was a little like disillusioned into how quickly I thought that like little old me was going to make all these changes in the world. But the more I got into it, the more I connected with other people. And the more I was like, hey, you too? Cool. Like, let's talk about that. And you meet this person and that person and someone with some like yourself. We don't share all the same story, but
Right.
we share so much because we've been through something. You
Right.
always can find a way to connect with people. And when you have something going on, especially chronic illness, it's so easy to get isolated that it's so important to talk and to find people to share your story with, because if you can't leave your house, the beauty of social media and the internet is that you can still find people to connect with. It's not
Sure.
easy necessarily to do. Not everybody is for everybody. I'm not for everybody. That's okay. But for the people that I can help and be there for, or at least be a bridge to get them to somewhere else, because nobody wants to be alone. We're social creatures, and it's hard when you're going through something and you don't have a support system to rely on. And
Yes.
that's what we want to be for all these people, and
Right.
your attitude, your mentality, I'm like, I want to bottle that up, so when someone needs something, just to be like, here, have some of this, and it'll fix you. It's what you need. Because it's that brightness of somebody truly that you see has been through something, and they come out of that so much brighter and with this renewed sense of life. And you just show that so much with how you tell your story and just the desire to want to help people. So it's great that you were finally comfortable sharing that, because I think you've probably helped a lot more people than you even realize.
Well, I hope so, and I appreciate those words. It's definitely still, how they talk about getting out of your comfort zone. It's
Mhm.
definitely still outside my comfort zone,
Same.
but but that's okay. Like I said, as long as I'm helping one, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I don't like being on camera, oddly enough. I was always a person who was like, I'll do the advocacy like in the corner, like I don't want to get out, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'll write something, and
Yes.
then I'm like, guys, let's do a podcast. And everyone's looking at me like, Sam, you realize like what you're signing yourself up for. And now, the first time you do it, it's still nerve wracking. And I'm like, I don't really want to put myself out there. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, some of the things that I have said on the internet, like, but you know what? It's, it's never going to be 100% comfortable. Telling the darkest parts of you, or the scariest parts of you, is never going to be comfortable. But I realize more and more now that I wanna be for somebody else what I needed,
Yeah.
and what I wish that I had. And it's that piece where I'm like, I just wanna hear real people talk. I wanna hear a real story. I don't want the fluff. I don't want the inspirational
Yeah.
highlight reel. I want the stuff.
Right.
And if you have a good attitude after all the stuff, that's even better. How did you do that? Like, to give me the secret sauce, That's the conversations
Yeah.
that I think more people need. They need that realism. They need to see
Sure.
how you got to where you are, and you just laid that right out. Like, this is what I went through. This is what gets me through a hard day, and this is where I am now. And
Yeah.
that's going to help somebody, because
And I
they're going
think
to
everybody
emulate
kind of
that.
has their own way, and like you said, take pieces of this, and whatever works for you or works for me may not work for you, but take a piece of here and there and create your own.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, I think just being authentic.
Mhm.
And, you talked about, just kind of putting it out there. That's what people want, right? And we talked about when I was going through that. I mean, I would have loved to got, in front of someone and listen to say, "Hey, this is what I went through. This is how
Mhm.
be prepared here, but none of that was out there. And
Yeah.
so, but that, again, I, I'm just glad to be here. Every day's a bonus day to me, and I
Yeah.
always say if I can help somebody today, that's great. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, every conversation we've had, I have taken something from it. So I appreciate, you reaching out to us and us being able to
yeah,
connect and do this so I can share your wisdom and your words with our community. And I can't thank you enough for sharing everything you did with us today. And I think it's going to make a difference. And like I said, you're making that difference because you knew you wanted to, and that's exactly what you're able to do. So thank you so much for that.
you're absolutely welcome. And if there's anybody in your audience that would that needs help and they reach out to you, please. My website is tygipson.com, and that's Tygipson, but it
Mhm.
has my contact, it has everything on it. But I would love to help if there's somebody that needs just to talk to, or just to answer some questions. I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, I will make sure to put your info in the description. So if anybody wants to reach out, and
Yep.
it's funny you were talking about doing donation. I'm like, I signed up to be an organ donor. I don't know if I have any that anybody would want at this point.
Yeah. Uh,
Like, but
well,
it's one of those things where I'm like, if it works, you're welcome to it.
yes.
Like if it's
Well,
there.
what a great attitude to have, because I hear that a lot. It's real quick on that. People ask me all the time, "Well, I'm this age, or I've had this, or I've had," and I said, As long as you sign up, let the medical team decide that, right?
Yeah,
You'd be shocked of what all they're doing medically with people that have
yeah,
donated, and
yeah,
saving lives every day with it. So,
yeah.
thank you for being a donor, and I hope everybody out there will do the same.
Yeah, me too. My pancreas, I wouldn't offer that one up. I can't get it to work, so
See?
I wouldn't necessarily offer that one. But the other ones, they seem to be
Yes.
doing all right for now.
Well,
But
good. Well, that's
well,
great.
thanks so much, Ty, for being here. Appreciate
You're
it.
so well. Thank you.